Well, the scariest are aliens.
Because it's fear of the
Alien
unknown.
1 movie.
Oh my
Alien
god,
1 was like, that to me is the scariest scary movie ever.
Is
that
it,
movie was terrifying.
Is it Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind that takes place in Alaska, where they combine the actual footage of the woman's real therapy sessions and stuff?
I don't know. I don't
Jamie,
think
you
I
know
saw
what I'm talking
that one.
about?
Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind?
It's third or fourth kind. Which one's the original movie?
Third kind.
So this one's fourth kind. I'm almost certain. Probably wrong.
I never heard of it.
It's a really good movie. There's a woman up in I want to say Juneau, or no. What's the Nome, Alaska? And back in the day, she was she became famous because she claimed aliens were basically like showing up and abducting her and stuff, right? And eventually, her kid got abducted by aliens, or so that's the case, and they accused her of like killing the kid or whatever it may be. Like, obviously, nobody believes that this woman's son was abducted or daughter was abducted by aliens.
So it's not currently available in our country?
I think it's like in Canada. I think it's showing up weird.
You can only get it in Canada?
I don't know.
Go down to the what?
That's strange.
Interesting.
But they have it's a movie about this case, but they splice in real footage of her therapy sessions she had to go to that she was going to while she was being abducted each night. And they do this I don't really know how to describe it. This deep meditative state that makes you recall your dreams, and she's like describing all the things that were happening to her, these aliens, and she starts screaming, she starts like levitating up from the couch a little bit, like it's creepy as shit. But it's a really good movie. It's my favorite abduction movie I've ever seen. And obviously nobody believes her. She runs into the one person. Oh yeah, like that old footage is like the real footage.
Wow. So here's my issue with the alien abduction thing. Other than there's not like any real solid evidence that you could point to that's very convincing. It always happens at night. And it always happens during periods where people sleep. And when you're sleeping, I'm not saying always. Okay, I'm sure there's some stories out there. I'm sorry. But most of the stories I've ever heard are people in their bed, they can't move, aliens abduct them,
Paralysis.
or they're in a car, the car stops, they wake up, aliens abducted them. When you go to sleep and you dream, there are psychedelic chemicals that your brain makes, and we don't know how much they're making. We don't know what effect that's having on your dreams. We don't know what is going on. What is going on with dreams? What is going on with vivid dreams? What is going on with dreams that they're indiscernible from real life in sometimes, in a strange way. Like, what is that? Is that a psychedelic state your brain goes into every night?
Yeah.
And if chemicals vary in human beings, serotonin varies, dopamine varies, everything varies, testosterone varies, estrogen varies, it varies. Wouldn't you just assume those psychedelic chemicals would vary? And wouldn't you just assume that sometimes maybe even people are in very agitated, anxiety-ridden states, high cortisol levels, perhaps maybe those chemicals are coming out in an abundance too. Now,
So
if
hits a
you're
spike in it,
lying
yeah.
in bed and you're having an insanely vivid and terrifying interaction with aliens every night, because your brain is just dumping psychedelics into you. And this is your big fear. So you're going to get abducted by aliens again. And then there they are again, leaning over your bed and they're reaching for you. And
Constant
you're like,
paranoia.
and then here's the mind fuck of all mind fucks. Maybe psychedelics are a gateway to some other reality, some other dimension that's accessible by these creatures.
I like this.
And that when you are getting abducted, you really are getting abducted. Like whatever your being is or your spirit or whatever is you is getting, you're interacting with these things. And it feels real because it is real. And because we're thinking about the ability to come in contact with other life forms as being a physical thing. It might be that there's a chemical gateway in your mind that when breached, you enter into a dimension where physical bodies don't exist anymore and everything moves in this constant soup of geometric patterns. And that whatever your consciousness is, whatever your soul is decoupled from the body and thrown into this realm.
I imagine that's probably what happens at death.
It probably is what happens with death. It's probably what it's all. I mean, that's probably why people think about it that way. That you're going to transcend into heaven. You're going to go into this new place. It might be true. It might be like a lot of the old depictions of like what happens when you enter into a psychedelic state. I've heard this multiple times that it's like a well of souls, that you're interacting with souls that are like completely unattached to a physical presence.
Yeah.
And maybe you're getting layers and layers of that depending upon how fucked up you are while you're sleeping. And maybe some of those layers are, boom, aliens are in the room with you.
Peeled back.
Just aliens in the room with you. And maybe they can do that. Maybe they can visit you while you're in those states. Maybe that's... He's so good.
Yeah.
He's so good in everything.
He looks so young there.
Oh, he was, man.
Man, oh man.
What a fucking movie this was, because I wanted to believe so bad after this movie.
Yeah.
I so wanted to believe. They got me.
Hey,
They
did
got
you
me,
talk
Steven
about that?
Spielberg.
Did you talk about that alien craft that came into our
What happened? What are you talking
into our
about?
galaxy?
It did?
The one with the Hawaiian name?
Oh, so it's over.
You didn't hear about that one?
The one that looks like a joint?
Yeah, it looks or a big piece of poo.
Yeah. That's just a rock,
The big
right?
duty copter.
It's just a weird rock. I think.
No, they said that some like legit people said that it changed speed and went in different
Oh,
directions. And
legit people.
legit people,
Oh.
scientists,
Oh, them guys.
said that it was it could be something.
Could be.
What does Neil deGrasse say about it?
He's not talking right now.
Yeah, he's in a little bit of a kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle. What's this, Jamie?
This thing right here.
Harvard scientists say
Billions
aliens
of
may
miles
explain
away.
bizarre interstellar object. Yeah, I saw that, and then I saw someone refuting that they
Harvard
would...
scientists. Harvard.
Nobody wants to believe more than me, bro.
Come on, Joe. It's real.
Well, if I was going to mask my spaceship to fly through the galaxy, I would definitely make it look like a big rock.
yeah, like a big
Yeah.
asteroid
Right. Why wouldn't you?
driving through space.
Maybe if they were like, look, if we just make this thing drive by them and don't change speeds, they'll have no idea. Just think we're an
Right.
asteroid, and they'll be psyched that we missed them. Like, yeah, good call.
And the
But
guy's
then
like,
someone
"Left turn!"
Someone just hits the gas. I'm tired. I don't want to. It's fucking taking too long.
What'd
Like,
you
he
do,
just
Dave?
decides,
What?
Dude, you got it. The fucking cops are behind us, Dave. Shit.
God damn it, Dave. You're not supposed to just take off.
I told you. 65, you fuck. Let's start throwing this weed out the window.
Why would it be so hard to believe? A space rock traveling through space.
That would be the move, right? I mean, if they're so advanced that they can travel through galaxies, they can make the shit look like anything they want it to.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you doll it up?
Radiation pressure,
The only thing that I would
accelerating
think, though,
force.
would be, well, there's no air in space, right? So it wouldn't be aerodynamics. What would it be, momentum?
No, go down a little bit. I think it answers your question. If radiation pressure is the accelerating force, then Oumuamua represents a new class of thin interstellar material.
Whoa.
It has a different thing that it's using for energy.
What?
As to what may have produced this previously unseen material, it could have emerged naturally from the debris of the planet-forming disk in a distant solar system going through yet an unknown process. They've got a whole nother way to make... We went from Toyota Corollas to this thing.
Jesus Christ. Imagine if that's what we find. The only thing that I would think
That's
of,
what it does.
the weird, like a rock, right? Rock is not smooth, but it doesn't necessarily need. This is where I'm stupid. This is one of many places where I'm stupid. But it doesn't necessarily need to be aerodynamic, right? Because it's not going through air; it's going through the
No.
vacuum of space.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm not wrong there. It could actually look like a rock.
It could
Like,
be-
the only issue would be getting it into space, right? The aerodynamics, assuming that you're shooting it from a planet with an atmosphere. Again,
Right, gravity.
should not be talking about this. Way too stupid.
No, let's
But
go.
let's keep-
That's
let's
what
keep
life's
going.
about.
If you're launching it from Earth into space, right?
Yeah.
What if you had it encased in like this outer area, sort of like the space shuttle is?
Yeah.
But then once you get to a place, you could jettison the outside of it, just like they get rid of those booster rockets.
Yeah, they fall
right?
off
They just fall into the
and
fucking
disintegrate.
land on people while they're fishing.
What the hell was that?
That has to have happened, right?
Yeah.
Imagine getting killed by a booster rocket flying out of space and hit you in the face.
Didn't
Fuck.
disintegrate.
But then they could do that. They could release the shell, and then they would just have the rock. and the rock would move through space, and it didn't matter what shape it was because it's in the vacuum of space.
Or just get it up into orbit, like the space station, go and build it in pieces, and then launch it.
Do you remember when that Commander Chris Hadfield gentleman was on the podcast, and he was talking about some kind of magnet that they have that collects subatomic particles out there in the galaxy, and that we only know 5% of what the universe is made out of.
Oh my God!
When they're talking about things like dark matter, and he was
5%.
And this is a guy's scientist, space, a real legit astronaut coming back from 6 months in space or whatever the fuck he was there for, and telling us this. We're like,
wow,
what?
Yeah,
like,
we've talked about
God.
that. Like, you can hang with those guys for a little while, and then you're like, I don't understand what's happening now.
Well, it's also it's amazing what we do know. Amazing that they can send a guy to space and have him fly around the ISS or, Well,
talk about what you were saying about why are we here and what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, we haven't developed yet something that can go the speed of light. We haven't, but if we do, then the whole universe is open to us. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the struggle of developing all this stuff is to get to a scientific level where we can really go.
I don't think they think the speed of light is even good enough.
Really?
Yeah.
God damn it. That was my goal.
I think that, if you wanted to have options available as to what planet you're going to colonize, you're going to have to, who knows, what if you land on a planet? What if you land on a planet and it's like, hey, it's 74 degrees out. Guys, it's all oxygen and nitrogen. It's just like Earth. Come on out here. But it's only been like that for 10 years. And then its cycle is really fucked up. 30 years from now, it's going to be an ice age.
It'll be horrible.
All the people have moved there and they're going to freeze to death and there's going to be no food at all. And the planet doesn't give a fuck. That is
all our science led us to that.
I don't even know if we can predict. Here's my question: can they accurately predict the atmosphere and the conditions and what the temperature would be if a planet is from a sun? Do they have a calculation where they say, oh, this sun is this amount of big and this planet is this far away, so it's definitely going to stay within a certain temperature range for the entire time that the planet? Do they know that within a death range?
I don't know.
Because a death
I would
range
think so.
is only 40 degrees.
They must.
Death range is 40 degrees, bro.
Yeah.
You get to 140, that's a wrap.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah. So 100 you can make it, 140 everyone's dead. Right? You're living in a sauna, you're going to run out of water. I just don't think we're going to make it. The 2017 New York Times article, in my mind, made that was a big shift. Because when the New York Times is reporting about it and saying that this is major news and this is real and there's video evidence that they can't ignore, when you talk to high-level people at the government and people like Commander David Fravor, who had that infamous spotting off of the coast of San Diego, when you hear about people like that are very reputable, it starts to change the conversation in a lot of people's eyes.
Right. See, it used to be that one person would see something in the sky and say, look, Martha, look, there's something up there. Now things have changed. Now we have multiple sightings by multiple modes. That is the gold standard for looking for these objects. Not just one person, but several people that are reputable. Not just radar, but visual sighting, infrared sensors, telescopic evidence. Now we have multiple sightings by multiple modes. And so the burden of proof has shifted. It used to be the burden of proof was on the people who believed in UFOs. They saw something, prove it. Now the burden of proof has shifted to the Pentagon, to the military. Now they have to prove that these aren't extraterrestrial. And so I think there's been a sea change in the last just several years. 50 years ago, there was a congressional hearing, and it was coming out of Project Blue Book. And there was a lot of laughter and a lot of jokes about little green men in outer space. 50 years ago, that's the way it was. Now, things have changed. Now people are looking at are they a threat militarily? What kinds of sensors do we have? What kind of metrics do we have? We now have, frame by frame, an analysis of these objects. These objects travel between Mach 5 and Mach 20. That's 20 times the speed of sound. These objects can zigzag and we can measure the G-force inside this object. The G-forces are several hundred times the force of gravity. In other words, any living person's bones would be crushed by these objects, so they're probably drones of some sort. These objects can drop 70,000 feet in a few seconds. Think about that. It can drop a tremendous distance in just a few seconds, and they can go underwater. This is something that we didn't realize before, but yes, they can actually go underwater. And they also move without creating an exhaust or breaking the sound barrier. So these are things that we can now document frame by frame looking at these videotapes.
So for yourself, what was the shift? And how did you feel about UFOs, say like 10, 15 years ago?
Well, there is this giggle factor, and it's the third rail, of course, of your scientific reputation, if you believe in these things. But the evidence is accumulating over the last several years. Now, when I was first approached by Carolyn Corey, the producer of this film, A Tear in the Sky, I was skeptical. I said to myself, come on. I mean, 5 days? 5 days you're going to look for flying saucers in the sky? What happens if the aliens are camera shy and they don't show up in 5 days? So I was pleasantly surprised when they actually found something. They actually have photographic evidence of objects that can gyrate just the way the Pentagon has said. And so we now have a sea change. A center of gravity has changed with regards to looking at these objects. We no longer simply look at one individual seeing something in the sky. No, we demand hours of videotape, multiple sightings by multiple modes. That's the gold standard now.
So what do you think is happening? Do you think that this is something that maybe another government from another country has created that far surpasses our abilities, or do you think that this is coming from somewhere else?
Well, the Pentagon has listed, I think, 5 different options. One option, of course, is that they're weather balloons or something that's an artifact of our space program. Maybe a piece of rocket that is plunging back into the Earth's atmosphere. That's one category. Another category is anomalous weather events. They happen, and they have to be looked at very carefully. But the last option is other. That is not just the Russians or the Chinese, because these objects apparently can gyrate faster than what the Chinese and the Russians can muster, but it opened the door to the possibility of other. They didn't specify what other was, but you can fill in the dots yourself. Now, one possibility for other is hypersonic drones. We see that in warfare now. The Russians, in the Battle of Ukraine, is actually using hypersonic drones to hit targets inside Ukraine. To be hypersonic, you have to go faster than Mach 5. Anything faster than 5 times the speed of sound is called hypersonic. And so the Russians are now fielding hypersonic drones in warfare. But you see, this is something just in the last few months. These sightings, they go back decades into the past, with objects executing these gyrations decades ago. And that's why you have to take them seriously.
So the Commander David Fravor event that we talked about off the Nimitz, that was 2004. Do we have an accurate understanding about military capability in terms of like drones and propulsion systems from 2004? Or are there things that are classified that we are not going to have access to? Like, is it possible that, 18 years ago, they had the capability to have a vehicle or a drone move this way, that information has just not been released?
Well, 2 years ago, the United States military admitted that it stopped working on these hypersonic drones. Why? They're unstable. They zigzag. And that's why the Russians have put a premium on this technology to evade our Star Wars program. The Russians wanted a rocket that can maneuver and therefore outwit a stationary Star Wars system designed to shoot down these drones.
Right.
So that's why the Russians have put a priority on this, and they've now fielding in warfare. We actually see them as a military weapon. 2 years ago, the United States military stopped its program. They're too unstable. They were not reliable. And it was not worth the amount of money to put into it because the military was invested in the Star Wars program, not the anti-Star Wars program. But because Vladimir Putin announced the hypersonic drones, then the United States military said, oops, nope, we have to get into the game too. So now the United States is also working on hypersonic drones as well as the Chinese. So the Chinese, the Russians, and the Americans are all working on these things. But you can see how primitive they are. We're talking about objects that defy the known laws of aerodynamics with a technology beyond what we have today. And so that's why people are scratching their heads. Whose are these things if they're not the Chinese, the Russians, or the United States?
So one of the main points of contention is the lack of visible propulsion method. Right. There's essentially, there's no heat signature. There's nothing that we understand to be present that normally exists when something is going at a tremendous rate of speed.
That's right. Not only that, these objects create no sonic booms. When you exceed the sound barrier, you create a gigantic boom that is then shatters windows and can be heard miles around. These objects can effortlessly break the sound barrier and not create a sonic boom. And they don't create any exhaust. We don't see an exhaust trail from these objects. So either they're an optical illusion of some sort, or they have a set of laws of physics beyond what we can muster. Now, if they are an optical illusion, if an object were to move in front of your eyes, traveling at a very slow velocity, but you don't know how far they are away, you may think that object is very far away from you, traveling at enormous velocities. So a weather balloon drifting in front of your eyes can simulate an object traveling at hypersonic velocities if you think that weather balloon is far away from you. So how do you tell the difference? Well, you look at wind patterns. It turns out that many of these sightings, these objects defy the direction of the wind. If they are weather balloons that you confuse with a flying saucer, then they would be moving with the direction of the wind. But these objects do not do that. These objects can go against the direction of the wind. Not only that, but we have multiple sightings. If an object is very, very far away, if an object is close to you, but you think it's far away, then it's traveling at an enormous velocity while it's actually just drifting in front of your eyes. How do you tell the difference? By having multiple sensors, radar, infrared sensors, visual sighting. Then you can tell how far this object is away from you, and then you can say that, no, it's an optical illusion. Well, we do that now. We have multiple sightings of these objects. By radar, we know how the velocity, the distance. Each time it comes out to be real. And so that's why we're scratching our heads. Who has this capability? And the answer is, we don't know.
Is there anything that's theoretical that you're aware of that could be applied, like from some other planet or some other galaxy or whatever, that something that maybe we have theorized that could be responsible for the way these things are able to move?
Well, when I talk to my friends who are physicists like myself about these things, they sort of laugh, giggle, their eyes roll up to the heavens, and they say something very simple, that a rocket using conventional means would take 70,000 years to reach us from the nearest star. Therefore, these objects cannot exist. 70,000 years for a Saturn rocket traveling at 25,000 miles per hour to go from a nearest star to the planet Earth. That's why most scientists disregard these sightings, because they defy the laws of Einstein.
But isn't that kind of silly? Isn't that kind of like saying, you can't, you know how long it would take you to get a horse from Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia? Isn't that kind of like saying that?
Exactly. And that's why I say that assumes that these aliens or whatever are maybe 100 years more advanced than us. But open your mind to the possibility that they are 1,000 years more advanced than us. 1,000 years is nothing compared to the age of the universe.
Right.
The universe is about 13 billion plus years old. That's how the age of the universe. And so the age of a civilization, just a few thousand years ahead of us, that is just a blink of an eye to the universe itself. And once you go to higher energies, the laws of physics begin to break down. The laws of Einstein and the laws of the quantum theory break down at something called the Planck energy. Why is that important? That's what I do for a living. I work on something called string theory, which lives at the Planck energy. The Planck energy is 10 to the 19 billion electron volts. That is a quadrillion times more powerful than our most powerful atom smasher outside Geneva, Switzerland. Any civilization that could harness the Planck energy would be able to become masters of space and time. Space and time as we know it become unstable at the Planck energy, which is far beyond anything that we can muster here on the planet Earth. So, we physicists theorize, how advanced do you have to be to access the Planck energy? Well, we rank them. The Kardashev scale says that there could be type 1, type 2, or type 3 civilizations. A type 1 civilization is maybe 100 years more advanced than us, to maybe 1,000 years, sort of like Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon. They control the weather. Volcanoes, earthquakes, anything planetary, they control. That's type 1. Then there's type 2. Type 2 is stellar. They harness the power of an entire star, like Star Trek. Star Trek would be a typical type 2 civilization where they manipulate entire stars. Then there's type 3. Type 3 is galactic. They roam the galactic space lanes. They play with black holes, like the Empire of the Star Wars series would be a typical type 3 civilization. Then the next question is, what type do you have to be to harness the Planck energy? The energy at which space and time become unstable, where wormholes may develop, gateways through space and time, portals through empty space. You have to be type 2 or most likely type 3. Then the next question is, how long will it take before you become type 3? Well, we are maybe 100 years away from being type 1. We're maybe a few thousand years from being type 2, and we're maybe 100,000 years from being type 3. And 100,000 years is nothing on a galactic scale. The age of the universe is, as I said, over 13 billion years old. And so once a civilization reaches the Planck energy, that is a type 3 civilization, space and time become your playground.
George, I think that you're probably like one of the most important figures when it comes to journalism and UFOs. And when you broke the Bob Lazar story, is that 89? When was that?
1989.
89. 1989, I remember reading about it. I remember hearing about it. I remember watching clips on television and watching countless Bob Lazar interviews. It all came out of you. I mean, did you think at that time, I mean, what was your thoughts about UFOs before you had met Bob Lazar, and how much did it change while you got to know him and hear his story?
It changed quite a bit. I had not really given it much thought at all. Probably the same level of curiosity as most people. You go about your life, you pay your bills, you go to work, you love your family, and it's always out there somewhere. Hey, I wonder what the deal is on that.
Right.
But had not really dwelled on it until it was a day in 1987. Into the studio comes a guy named John Lear. And I had heard sort of a little bit about him. His family was famous. His dad developed the Lear jet, the 8-track tape. John had run for the state senate, and he had a certain amount of credibility with our news organization, KLAS-TV, because he had helped us break a really big story. And the story was the stealth fighter, the F-117. He had told my boss, Ned Day, managing editor, about this amazing plane that was invisible to radar flying up in Tonopah in Area 51. We had an interest in Area 51, not UFO related, but Ned broke that story. It went national. So John Lear comes into the station one day with a stack of what turned out to be UFO documents. He plops them on Ned's desk and says, Ned, this is going to be the next biggest story, the biggest story in history. It's a UFO cover-up. Aliens are here. Technology's been recovered. Ned takes a look at it and says, I'm not doing this story. If it was true, I'd already know about it. This is crazy. Well, I'm eavesdropping, as I tend to do. I'm a curious person. So as he's going out, I said, Lear, let me take a look at this material. And I looked at it. I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. At the time, I was producing and hosting this little public affairs show, 30-minute interview show. It would air Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. Nobody watches it. It would be interviewing a city councilman, a county commissioner. What the heck? I'll put Lear on there. And I let him go. And he told me this big scenario about secret treaties with aliens and recovered technology and a giant cover-up. Some of the information sounded outrageous. Some of it seemed like it would be worth checking out. Suddenly, the phone starts ringing off the hook. I'm getting calls about people that, who was that guy? What was the deal on that UFO stuff? Is it real? I had him on again. 6 months later, the response was bigger. I had him on a third time with a guy named Bill Cooper. I regret that. And he told him an even more elaborate conspiracy.
He's the Behold the Pale Horse guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I read that book, and halfway through I was like, what in the fuck is this?
Yeah. He tied in the JFK assassination. And,
everything. Bases on the moon. Aliens are there right now.
He had this scenario where he had seen these documents when he was in the Navy, and he's going to tell the world about it, then he's going to go away. Well, every time he told the story, the documents got bigger and bigger, and anybody who criticized Bill Cooper became part of the secret government, including me. So we do this third show with Lear, and he hints that he knows a guy who might be going to work out at Area 51 and knows something about alien technology. That guy turns out to be Bob Lazar, but Lear didn't give me the name at that time. A couple months later, I am anchoring the 5 o'clock news on KLAS, and we have a nightly or evening interview segment, 5-minute segment, live interview. Our guest doesn't show up, and we're scrambling to find somebody to fill that hole. And I thought about Lear. So I called him up, not knowing what had been going on in Lazar's life or Lear's life. And I said, hey, is your that UFO guy you told me about, is he around? Would he do an interview? Just turned out that Bob had been through the ringer. A lot of stuff going on in his life. He felt threatened. And he said yes. We had to black out his face. We do this interview, and he spills the basics of the story. I worked out there at a place called S4. I saw 9 flying saucers in an underground base. This is technology that came from somewhere else. I'm in fear for my life. Holy cow, the phones start ringing off the hook. My news director comes rushing in, the station manager. Is that for real? What's the deal on that? And we realized we had touched the pulse of the public in a way that I didn't really understand. We arranged to go meet Bob Lazar, my news director, Bob Stodall, and I, that following weekend, and put him through a paces where we would ask him questions about his background and how he got the job. And we spent a couple hours with him, and we walked out of that meeting thinking, holy shit, what if this is true? This is really risky for us as journalists. It's risky for our personal reputations if it blows up in our faces and we do this story, and it would really damage the reputation of our news organization, which is KLAS is a jewel. It's always been a leader in Las Vegas, one of the best TV news operations in the country. We're putting a lot on the line. Well, look, we decide, let's take our time. Let's look into this guy's story. And then in order to understand Lazar, we'd have to look at the bigger picture of UFOs. So I started a cram course on ufology, and I read everything. And I spent 8 months like cramming for a final exam that never happened. I read everything. I interviewed people. That same year, MUFON had its international symposium in Las Vegas, and there all the world's UFO people came right to me. I got to interview them, traveled around, went to Los Alamos. Lazar took us into the lab. We took cameras in there. He walked us around, waving to people. We didn't even have to stop for security. Took us into the lab like it was a rabbit going through its own burrow. He knew his way around. We were allowed to take a camera in there. We put those stories together, put them on the air in November, and man, it just went through the roof. Every night of this 9-part series, people got the audience got bigger, phones ringing off the hook, people calling, giving us information. Suddenly, it's on something called Paranet, which was sort of a precursor to the internet, and it was huge. And it changed my life for sure. I had no idea that there were so many people out there interested in the topic, and I was hooked. And I really got hooked on Lazar not only because his story. Personally, I was interested in him. We became friends. I saw what happened to him after that live interview, and in the 7.5 months before we went and I revealed his identity, people were really messing with him. I mean, you cannot convey what it was like, how weird it was then, breaking into his house, leaving the windows open, messing with things in his home, breaking into his car, leaving the doors and windows down, just messing with his head.
And you think that was the government that was doing that?
Yeah, I do. I think so. And then So I had put out a call to people, hey, I want other people to come forward.
This was before his identity was revealed. We should explain this.
I am actively seeking information from the public. If you ever worked at Area 51 or S4, you know anything about this, you're at Nellis Air Force Base, reach out to me. So I started getting calls, and 6 people right in a row who had talked to me on the phone and offered to give me information were visited right after the call. One of them was a guy who did tax returns for people at Nellis Air Force Base, and he had got to know these guys really well and got information about crashes. There was a guy who was a golf pro at Nellis who had gone on out road trips with officers and told him about this weird stuff out at Area 51 that seemed to be from somewhere else. He gets visited and told to shut up. There was a lady who worked in the court system. A cop told me about her, and I talked to her on the phone, and she had worked at the court system, but before she had worked for a company called Holmes and Narber, which is a defense contractor. And she said she sat in as a stenographer in these meetings and heard these conversations between the government contractors and Air Force officials about crashed saucers. And they would, after the meeting, they take the tape out of the typewriter and destroy it and take all the notes. And she agreed to tell me this story. It was just a tiny piece of the story. The next day, she's visited by these 2 guys in suits. They tell her, look, you are still subject to your security clearance. I hope you know that. And then they said, we know you travel to L.A. to see your daughter, and we know she comes here. It's a big desert out there. It'd be terrible if something happened to either one of you. This lady is scared shitless. She didn't make that stuff up. So 6 people who had offered to give me information on the phone, one right after another, get visited, and it made me mad. It also made me mad that dealing with, trying to fill in pieces of Bob Lazar's life. Now, I know there's some gaping holes. I know it better than anybody. I've had to deal with it for 31 years. But I always thought if he worked at Los Alamos in classified projects in a scientific or technical capacity, then it would make sense that he could get hired into a program like S4 as somebody who thinks outside the box. Despite personal shortcomings or whatever, they might bring somebody like him in to help them crack a problem that they hadn't been able to resolve themselves. So I focused on Los Alamos. I knew he had been there. I talked to people who remembered him from being there, but the lab kept telling me, no record of him. He's never here. And then I showed him, well, look, I've got the Los Alamos newspaper. It's a small town paper. There it is on the front page, a front page story. Bob Lazar, physicist, Mason facility, Los Alamos lab. It's a story about his jet car. Nope, still have no records of him. And then I found his name in the phone book from the era when he was there. He's in the lab phone book. He had been hired by a company called Kirkmeyer, which is a company that's a headhunter that fills positions at Los Alamos and places like that. So great, I'll reach out to Kirkmeyer. They said, yeah, we hired him. Yeah, we've got records. Can I get it? Can I get his employment records that would show where he went to school, whatever information you guys had? Yes. A couple weeks go by, nothing. Couple more weeks go by, I call him again, I start writing them. I've got a stack of letters that thick. It went on for 2.5 years, and finally, by the end of it, they said he was never here. We don't have any records. That pissed me off. It made me mad, and I think that is really what got me hooked in the story, is that I was being jacked around by government and national facilities like that.
We should explain the Los Alamos thing, because the Los Alamos thing coincided with him doing work at MIT, right? Is that correct?
That's how he's explained it to me. Yeah,
and the way he explained it to me, I don't think I'm at liberty to say what the project was, because the project, the way he was describing it, is essentially internationally illegal, like what they were working on. And that's one of the reasons why he was saying, he explained what the project was. It sounded very feasible, also very evil. And then it was basically a weapon. And then he said that this was the reason why there was no actual record of him studying at MIT. It wasn't important that he got a degree. It was important that he understand the technical specifications of what they were attempting to accomplish.
That's my understanding as well. Yeah. And, it's always been the most problematic part of his background. And it's where a lot of people in the Bob Lazar story, that's where they stop.
But the thing is, when you listen to him talk and when he describes things, it's very clear he's educated.
Oh, he's a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
There's no, but I had always told him, and Bob, you're my friend. I want to have a conversation with you about these claimed degrees because I didn't believe that he'd ever sat down. In those days, you go to a college like MIT or Caltech and get a degree. You've got to take classes in something other than science. I could not imagine Bob Lazar taking an English lit class to save his life. But he is a brilliant guy. I'll give you an example. In April, COVID thing is raging. My wife and I are staying at home. We're getting packages delivered for food and things of that sort. I'm a little worried. They didn't know about contact, whether you can get it off of cardboard boxes or whatever. And I mentioned to Bob in a phone conversation, I'm thinking about buying one of these UV screener systems. He goes, wait a second, don't buy one. I think I've got the parts that I can make you one in my garage. And a week later, it arrives. This thing, he's got it in his garage, handmade, this big scanner with these UV things that works. He just whipped it up in his garage.
I'll remind you, you got the scanner. I got a laser gun.
Right.
You got a laser gun?
I did, man. It is super powerful. So it's like a handheld toy that he retrofitted with a superpower. So I'm like lighting shit on fire in my house.
So it looks like a handheld toy, but it's actually a real laser?
It's a toy with full noise, but he put a diode in there, and it's super powerful. Like it can light shit on fire. My wife hates that shit. So I got the laser gun.
You also got the flamethrower, though. Lazar made a flamethrower. This is before your buddy Elon made flamethrowers.
No comment on that.
Yeah, well,
it's a massive
he made one.
flame.
Made a flamethrower.
Massive.
Yeah, he's obviously a very intelligent man.
Yeah.
When you listen to him talk, there's no bullshitting going on. When he talks about talks about undeniable, concrete things, when it comes to science, when it comes to elements, when it comes to propulsion systems, he clearly knows what he's talking about. And the really confusing thing for people that are detractors is he really hasn't changed his story in 31 years. It really is the same story, and that's really.